Hello and welcome to the Low Post, a weekly sports talk show presented by the Sunday News sports staff and available on LancasterOnline.com each week. I'm Eric Stark of the Sunday News, and sitting next to me is Mike Gross, also of the Sunday News, and we're going to hit several topics this week. We're going to talk about baseball, also going to talk about the NCAA tournament and the Philadelphia 76ers. We're going to kick things off as the 3-week Love Fest with basketball takes place. What a great time of year with the tournament every year, and I can't believe, I always get sort of sad. It's like when the midnight hour comes Christmas night, when you know it's about to come to an end. It's sort of like we're down to the final four weekend, Mike.
Because it's a love fest.
It is.
Who wants a love fest to end? I know I don't.
I don't.
There you go.
Observations.
Well, when we did our pre-NCAA tournament show, Starkey, obviously our predictions generally were horrific and have been thrown in the paper shredder. But we did. I think we did make the point that just because there's never been a year when all four number one seeds made it, there's no reason to believe that can't happen. There was no logical reason why it can't happen, and that all four number one seeds were pretty strong number one seeds. I was wrong. I was wrong about North Carolina for sure, but in general, I think it's not that much of a long shot for this to happen. I thought there were four really strong number one seeds, right. and I thought we got that point across, that it's sort of a logical fallacy to think that because something has never happened, it can't happen, when there's no logical reason to believe it shouldn't happen.
I want to point out, you had all four seeds making the Final Four, correct?
All four number one seeds?
Yes.
No, I did not. I did not have North Carolina.
Okay, I had Texas. That was the only one I had wrong. And the funny thing was, when I did the bracket, I purposely was trying to find somebody to get knocked out, as opposed to saying, why can't these four teams be just that good enough to get through? And in fact, they were very impressive in this tournament.
They were, and I think all four of them. And I was really wrong about North Carolina, and I think it's one of those times when I was wrong and I can learn from it, because I think I watched them play through the year, and I think Roy Williams had kind of a vision for the way he wanted them to play, and I think the players now have caught up to the vision, and they're playing with unbelievable intensity at both ends of the floor, so much better defensively than they were, even a month ago, and I really think that they are actually the favorite right now.
We were talking before we started shooting this about whenever they needed that clutch basket, they went to Tyler Hansbrough, and he's just Mr. Automatic, sort of like how Tim Duncan is in the NBA, or Michael. When you need him, he's there. But the role players, the Thompsons, the Greens, they box out Hansbrough, and you think they got the rebound, and somebody else comes in for the tap in. Yeah. The role players have played well for these guys.
It's not like Hansbrough's getting 40 and 25.
Right.
He had a phenomenal game against Louisville. I think he had 28 and 13. And he plays unbelievably hard, but they all play unbelievably hard, and that creates the opportunity to play the style that they want to play. They've sort of, I have this feeling that they've sort of caught up to the way their coach wants them to play, and I thought they played at a really, really high level. I thought for stretches of their game with Louisville, their Elite Eight game with Louisville, for stretches of that game, Louisville matched them. But they couldn't match them for 40 minutes. They just couldn't match that pace and that intensity.
The other three teams, Memphis, Kansas, and UCLA, your observations with those guys?
Well, looking ahead to a Memphis-UCLA semifinal, I think that it's interesting from this standpoint. That's going to be a really hard game to officiate, because UCLA is this physical team that's doing this, and they've got their hands on you, and they're riding you, and Memphis wants to dribble, penetrate to the basket. They want to make one-on-one individual offensive plays, and how much of that hanging on is UCLA going to get away with is a huge factor in that game, I think.
It's funny, UCLA, you think of West Coast finesse ball, yet their coach came from University of Pittsburgh, East Coast ball, and it's more of a physical style. He's brought that to the West Coast with these teams, and is this their third straight year making it to the Final Four?
Third straight Final Four, which is a phenomenal accomplishment. And as we said before, I think Kevin Love is the difference between this team and the previous two. And I think he gives them, he makes them better in terms of half-court offense. He's a great rebounder. I really like him a lot.
Two guys, one a freshman, Love, and then he's shown so much composure. And then on the other side, the point guard for Memphis, also a freshman, Rose.
Really, really strong player.
Both for freshmen, the composure out there in such a big environment and a big arena for what they're doing.
And with Rose, it's this. He's almost overly calm. You know, when you watch him explode for stretches, you realize, well, maybe he could do that more. But he is a point guard. He is a quarterback, and poise is a big issue. With Love, it seems like from day one, this is a kid who was playing high school basketball 1 year ago, right. And he totally understands. He never had any problem with how hard you have to play.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the impression I get with him. He has never had to like catch up to the speed and toughness and intensity of the college game. He's right in there plugging away. He could get double-figure rebounds a game in the NBA right now, I believe.
We haven't mentioned Kansas yet. We talk about these young freshmen. The Kansas has more of a mature team right now. Guys, a little more veterans.
No question.
And I do want to bring this up before I forget. The all-name player on the team, Sasha Khan.
That's right.
Shaka Khan.
That's right. You want to be cutting the CD?
He's good in the middle as a role player, and they've got these 3-4 guys that are very athletic and good wing players. What are your thoughts with Kansas?
I agree with you, but I was surprised, very, very surprised how guardable Kansas looked against Davidson. Davidson is a terrific man-to-man offensive team, but you didn't see them. Kansas like throw the ball over the top for lots of easy alley-oop dunks like they did. Like Villanova kind of went out and chased the ball against them.
Right.
Kansas just went over the top, and they didn't really do that against Davidson. And that game was really a grind. And Kansas was fortunate, I thought, to get out of that game with a win. I thought Davidson could have handled it a little better down the stretch, and maybe could have won that game. My stock in Kansas has gone down a little bit as a result of that game. Okay. I think Carolina's the favorite in that semifinal.
Who are you picking overall to win this thing?
Well, I think that I'm picking Carolina right now.
Okay.
And the reason is I really think that I'm more confident in picking them in the semifinal than I am either Memphis or UCLA. You see what I'm saying? So just by simple logic or simple odds, I just think they have a better shot.
And I'm going to pick UCLA to beat Carolina. It's funny, in one of the brackets I did with a good friend of mine, bragging rights, and Rodney Hess, name dropping.
There you go.
Rodney Hess's pool. I actually took Kansas versus UCLA, the Bruins, to win it. But I'm more impressed with what I've seen composure-wise out of the Tar Heels. So I think I'm going to take the Tar Heels versus UCLA, and I'll take the Bruins to edge them out.
Okay, fair enough. I picked UCLA to win the whole thing at the beginning of the tournament, but I just am really impressed with what North Carolina is doing. And nobody can blame you for dropping Rodney Hess's name, because that's money in the bank. So
Very good.
That.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's switch gears a little bit here.
All right.
Baseball season has started officially in America, not Japan this time.
Oh, don't get me started.
I know. And you know what? It was great. One of these cable stations we have, I'm not going to mention names. I don't mention their name anymore. We get a free preview of extra innings, and they call MLB extra innings.
Right.
And I'm watching tons of games yesterday. Was a baseball junkie and was just loving it. But before we get into opening day per se, let's go back to Saturday. You were down at one of the Phillies' last exhibition games. They had it down at Citizens Bank Ballpark. And any observations or thoughts from what you saw from the Phillies on Saturday? And then we'll jump into opening day.
Well, I think pretty clearly they were. This is like, let's get this over with so we can start playing the real games. Right. I mean, that was pretty clearly what it was, and they played pretty close to their everyday lineup, but really didn't. You could tell that there wasn't much spark there. And Jamie Moyer started and was fine. He did okay. He gave up a 3-run homer, which obviously he can't afford to do. But sort of a. Spring training has been long, and we've had enough of it now, and let's go. And you could see, I thought yesterday, an Utley and a Rollins kind of were turning it on a little bit.
Get up a notch.
Yeah, okay. I think so.
What about yesterday with the opening day? Let's start with the Phillies. I thought they need more pitching. It was pretty evident. I was like, here we go.
It's a 162-game season. It's no big deal to lose on opening day, except unless you have this history of bad Aprils. And you have this history of your pitching staff, your team your everyday lineup just can't outslug your pitching staff.
Throw the monkey on
when you lose on opening day, and you have that history, and you lose in the way they lost, it's a little disturbing.
Okay, to lose yesterday, how important is it to win their next game when you know that last April you were 4-11? How important is it to get a win and start to get back to 500 now, do you think?
Well, I think that I've been watching baseball too long to say that any game in April is, let's make a big deal about.
Okay.
I mean, think about how many times Rupee, our buddy Rupee, was wrong last year about the Phillies.
Always go the opposite.
He said it was over like 300 or 400 times, and you know, but so I'm not going to say that any game in April is a crucial game, but. Would it be better for them to get off to a good start, especially given their history? Absolutely.
Let's talk about one part in that game. Ramiro comes in. He's pitching well, and they go to their now closer. Let's talk about roles with pitching staffs, Mike. I remember when Whitey Herzog didn't have a closer for the Cardinals in the mid-'80s and went by bullpen by committee. And now we've got everybody. You have to have a middle reliever. You have to have a setup man. You have to have a closer. And I think at times it can screw up a game.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. We hinted at this last week a little bit. The way that pitching staffs are used, I think it's really dragged. I think it's as much of an explanation for the offensive explosion of the last 12, 15 years as anything else is. You talk about steroids, you talk about all that other stuff. I think a lot of it has to do with this. Use relief. Here's a crazy idea, Starkey. Let me throw it out here. Use relief pitchers like relief pitchers.
Oh, wow, what an interesting concept.
I'm just throwing it out there. You know, why can't J.C. Romero pitch the ninth inning? And it's certainly this is not unique to the Phillies. This is the way it is. This is pretty standard in baseball, right? We saw the Milwaukee Brewers have talked themselves into thinking that Eric Gagne is a closer because he had a phenomenal year as a closer several years ago.
Several years ago now.
Yeah. I mean,
and I was watching the game. He blew that game. Fukudomi, I think that's how we're saying it. 3-run homer on the bottom of the 10th.
That's a dangerous name. A lot can go wrong with that name.
It's funny, he did the curtain call. He seemed a little bit surprised with doing curtain call.
Right,
early.
yeah. And went 3 for 3, I think, in the game, including that home run, when really none of the other Cubs hit a home run.
Thinking about picking him up my fantasy team. But Gagne struggled. Kerry Wood, closer. You didn't need to bring him in when they did, but he struggled. And Tom Gordon yesterday for the Phillies. Let's get his name out there. That was horrendous. And he's a good guy. I still think he can pitch, but sorry, that wasn't a role he needed to go into yesterday.
Mitch Williams,
Ramiro was pitching.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mitch Williams said yesterday on the postgame show on television that Gordon did not throw his breaking ball yesterday, and after throwing it a lot and effectively during spring training, he said. I don't know. I thought Myers didn't throw as many breaking balls as he normally did. Brett Myers, who started for the Phillies, I thought he didn't look like he was in his usual groove and his usual, combinations of pitches like he normally is either. So it was kind of a strange day from that regard, but it's only 1 out of 162.
This is fun about baseball. It can frustrate you, and there's always tomorrow with baseball, and you can go get it right. You have to have a short memory in baseball.
You do, and there's so much. Even for relatively successful teams, there's just so much failure in baseball, and you do have to, wake up to the reality of that this is a game you go out and play every day.
Sure.
Or you'll drive yourself nuts.
Exactly. Some other observations, and you touched on it, so I was watching them yesterday. You mentioned how the Phillies are compared very well with the Detroit Tigers, and you did that in your preview even. It's in Sunday's sports section and the Sunday News. And I got to watch the Tigers yesterday, and boy, they're loaded. That offense.
That is a great offense.
That offense is more loaded than what the Yankees have now. It's just 1 through 9 is just phenomenal. And they're a lot of fun to watch. And Jake Peavy, what a dominant pitcher. I got to watch him a little bit yesterday against the Astros. There's so much movement on his ball. He's just always right around the plate. And the Dodgers, Brad Penny looked good. The Dodgers looked really good yesterday. And it was just great to hear Vince Scully. I just love his voice with baseball.
Still doing it by himself.
Yeah.
The Phillies have this crowded broadcast booth, and Vince Scully's doing it by himself. And what is he? He's got to be 90? I don't know, but he's an old man.
Yeah, he's up there.
He's a beloved old man.
It was funny. The one time during the telecast yesterday, he asked a question, and I was waiting for somebody else to answer because usually there's somebody else in the booth, and I realized he was by himself. Baby. And basically, he was just asking the question to me.
That's right.
Yeah, because he just tells you to pull up that chair and
You are almost waxing poetic on this subject. So very eloquent.
Vince Scully does that to me sometimes. Let's shift gears a little bit here. Philadelphia 76ers. Getting close to the postseason time, and you were down a few weeks ago to saw them play the Spurs. And what are your thoughts with the Sixers and the way they're playing right now?
Well, that was when they were on this phenomenal roll where I think they went 18-5 over a 23-game stretch. Since then they've cooled off, and I think the awesome roll has kind has kind of ended, and now they're kind of, you can't help but look at the standings and jockeying for position and thinking about consequences. So the sort of fun, crazy part of what was going on with the Sixers, I think, is over. But the strides that they've made, and I think they fooled everybody. I mean, I remember when we did our blog thing on the draft. I don't think either of us were too thrilled with Thaddeus Young, but what a revelation he has turned out to be, and what a revelation I think Billy King's draft picks have kind of turned out to be.
Billy King's looking a lot smarter right now. I think Maurice Cheeks should be up for Coach of the Year, the job he's done with keeping these guys, encouraging them, pushing them. But, yeah, it's been a good draft. Rodney Carney's hitting threes right now. Lou Williams, I thought was a horrible pick when they made it, is really playing well.
He really is.
And then Andre Iguodala becoming a real leader. They've got to sign him again. And in the clutch, Andre, whenever they need that clutch basket, just like I mentioned with Carolina, with Tyler Hansbrough, whenever the Sixers start to feel it slipping away or they need a key basket, Andre Miller goes and gets the hoop. And then he goes back to just being the role player and passing the ball.
So much better than anybody could have known that he was. And everybody knew he was a nice veteran point guard who's been a leader and a playmaker for a long time, but just outstanding. His ability to get his own shot, I had no idea that he had that until he came here. And so many of the Sixers are only going to get better. Lou Williams is a classic example. I mean, he's just in terms of explosiveness, he's really hard to guard. And they're just quicker than him. They're quicker than everybody else.
And they're using that. Maurice Cheeks saw that they had a key at speed, and they're running. And how refreshing is to see team basketball?
Oh yeah.
Instead of this Allen Iverson stuff. I mean, Allen Iverson was a gamer and a talent, but he was not a team player, and that's which
I don't think he can win with that. I think Allen Iverson is a solo act. I think he's Pete Maravich in a way. He's a solo act. I just think you're not going to win a championship with Allen Iverson. Let me ask you a question about Mo Cheeks, Starkey.
Sure.
Now, according to what everybody says, Ed Stefanski got the general manager's job and essentially told Cheeks who to play and how to play.
Yeah, I've heard that.
If that's true, how much credit does Cheeks deserve for it? I mean, I'm very pro Mo Cheeks. He's a great guy, but why didn't he figure out how to play before the GM came in and told him to?
I think it made a difference. He was in last year of his contract. He was a little bit desperate at the time to try to get wins. And when you're desperate to get wins then and show them now, you're not playing the young guys. Ed also came in and said, I want to see Smith out there. I want to see Thaddeus Young play more. Put Lou Williams out there. Yeah. And they started going away from Calvin Booth, a veteran, started going away from Kevin Ollie and playing the young guys. They've now incorporated the three recently, as Stefanski said, because they see him shoot some more threes. They see Rodney Carney out there. But I think when you're playing, and they gave him 1 year extension to sort of give the coach a little bit of peace of mind that his job's not in jeopardy. And you know what? I'll give the coach credit also for listening to the GM. He could have said, "The heck with you! It's my team. I'm going to play my way." And he was willing to take some constructive advice.
Yeah, and also facilitating it. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve any credit, but I just find it odd that it's there. Everybody down there is sort of open about the fact that this new GM came in and told him, play these guys and play this way, and it's an interesting situation. And you wonder. It's hard to assess coaches anyway, but I think it's given that circumstance, it's really hard for me to say with any kind of confidence, that Cheeks is the coach of the year or whatever he is.
I think it's all the way it's done. I think they came in casually at a desk with their feet kicked up on it and said, "Hey, did you ever think about playing these guys? Do you have a problem doing it?" And he said, "No, I don't have a problem doing it." And he had the peace of mind to know that the GM's not going to hold it over him if he's telling you to play the young guys and you lose with the young guys. That his job was in jeopardy.
Well, it's certainly in that sense it made Mo's life easier.
Yeah.
I think in that sense took the pressure off like a pressure valve. It took the pressure off.
So I think it was less of a "hey idiot, start playing these guys," is more like let's try it this way, and it's worked.
Who do you want him to play in the first round?
Well, that's a great question. I was about to ask you the same thing. I've looked at that. I don't want Boston because they're just loaded. They beat Detroit the other day, but Detroit's scary too. I don't even like Orlando, the third seed. I really would wish they could get up there and beat out Washington and get the fifth seed to go 4-5. I think Cleveland they would do really well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Orlando is a terrible matchup. I think Boston's just too good defensively and good at forcing a half-court game. So those two are out. Detroit, I think, will kind of be the same thing in the playoffs. I mean, they're a veteran club that's hard to deal with, that knows how to grind it out in that playoff style. I think Cleveland is the one that they could really cause some problems for.
And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Washington's starting to get healthy. Gilbert Arenas is probably coming back. Jameson's there.
Which may or may not be a good thing.
Yeah, you're right. And they could slide up, and that would help. But the key is Chris Bosh. Toronto was on a slide, but Chris Bosh just came back, and he's going crazy in 2 games back. 20 points the first time. I think it was 32 last night.
And he changes everything with their team. I mean, they're a completely different deal with him.
So as good as the Sixers are playing, it looks like they're probably going to be stuck at that 7th spot. So they're going to probably get Detroit in that mix. And, we'll see. It's just been funny. What's going to be neat is it looks like Denver's not going to make the playoffs. They lost last night in a heck of a game to Phoenix. Phoenix was down by 19 at halftime, came back and actually took the lead the end of the third and into the fourth and wound up running away with it. And they play again tonight, the same 2 teams. But
Denver doesn't play defense.
No, it's basically Iverson takes a couple chances, a couple of shots scoring, and then lets Carmelo take a couple, and the rest of the team stands around and watches him. It's the same thing as he's doing in Philadelphia. He doesn't understand team basketball.
But I mean, the Sixers. It's not like they're going to win the championship. So
they're not
regardless
there.
of who they play, make it a little dent, and it's baby steps. It's moving in the right direction.
Very similar to what Golden State accomplished last year, where they
they could be a dangerous.
Right,
they could be a dangerous team in that respect, just because of their quickness and how athletic they are.
It maybe carries over to a following year, and maybe we'll talk in future weeks about maybe what pieces they can add, but. They don't seem to be needing as many pieces after what we've been seeing the last couple of months from these guys.
Oh yeah, your notion of the Sixers has completely changed in the last 6 weeks or so. Really,
yeah,
it's amazing.
I'm trying to pinpoint more what they need, and it's like, well, I like that guy now, and that guy's playing well. So it'll be interesting to see how they put this team together this summer.
It will.
They have a little bit of cap room.
Thank goodness. I mean, it's worth talking about anyway. Sure. I don't think we'd have been wasted time 2 months ago. I don't think we'd have been wasting time on this show talking about the Sixers.
Well, we're going to wrap things up for this week. We had promised you Chip's medley for this week, but hey, we work at a job and a newspaper job, and he had a conflict come up, and he's going to give us time next week to talk hockey, and that'll be right around the time the playoffs are starting. We're also going to talk some Penn State football. We'll mix in some baseball or whatever else is going on in the world of sports. But until then, from the Low Post, I'm Eric Stark, and this is Mike Gross. We'll see you then.